So I'm also a session guide in the study, and just last week had a session that was very profound. It was a woman in her 60s who has advanced cancer, advanced metastatic cancer, and is at the end of life. And her needs were not unlike others. She felt isolated. She felt frightened. She was uncertain what was going to happen to her. And her intention for being in the study was her intentions were classic and beautiful. She talked about wanting to understand the mysteries of the universe, to have a greater acceptance of dying, to accept death in a more open way, to have better communication with my husband about my experience, to have a more spiritual outlook at the end of life, to have a better quality of life. Classic intentions of why we want people to be in the study. And the preparatory sessions with her were very intense, as we talked about how this disease has impacted her. And the session itself was as they all are, rich, intense, difficult. She went through a myriad changes in her emotions. She touched on some biographical material, a lot of grief, as she was able to access some of the emotions and affects around dying and what this means to her. There was connection with loved ones who've died years ago, where she revisited conversations with them and were able to potentially resolve conflicts and say goodbye and have those conversations. There was imagery of being lifted and carried off to a more pleasant place, and that felt lovingly, and it felt loving to her, and it felt safe, and she felt protected. So it was a very profound session. Next week we start the post-integration session, so we'll know much more about her experience. But from the day from that day, she phrased it as a quote very positive experience, and actually would do it again. She said, "Unfortunately, the study only has one psilocybin session, but it speaks to the power of the session, where the patient, upon finishing of the session, said, 'I would do that again.' It was that helpful." She cried a lot. She cried a lot and often, and I think in some ways it was able to facilitate, a connection with those emotions that she's been hard up to that point hard to really access, and it was really quite intense.